Welcome back to the 2016-2017 NBA preview. Today we are covering the fourth ranked team in the preview, the Los Angeles Clippers. My name is Josh of Envyerz, and with me today, like usual,
how's it going, guys? It's the king of the fourth quarter. Welcome back to the NBA preview.
So this Clippers team, a lot happened last season, especially in the playoffs. The whole Chris Paul injury, the Blake Griffin injury, essentially making this team get out in the first round. I mean, it wasn't going to get out the second round, but they got out in the first round and got beat by the Blazers, and a lot of question marks were around this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good sign when one of your star players gets into a fight with someone else in the organization. It's just all bad. And then when it came to the playoffs, him getting re-injured, Chris Paul getting injured, it was just terrible things. And I'm going to say this, and you guys are probably going to clown me, but I had them get into the second round and not only going against the Warriors, but beating the Warriors. And that was my prediction. That was my bold prediction. I know. That was my bold prediction for last year's playoffs.
I'm not a Clippers fan, okay? I feel like this team, with the current roster they have, the apparent big three of Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan, I feel like this team, with this big three, will never make it out of the second round. And like you said, with the whole Blake Griffin injury, punching, I believe, one of the staff members or something like that, breaking his hand, there was questions around, should they trade Blake Griffin? You know, they were performing good without him, and they made it to the playoffs without him, and, you know, this team was looking pretty good. So I guess the big question to you and the viewers is, should they trade Blake Griffin? Because there was definitely a lot of rumors, especially after the whole punching the faculty member.
Right.
Should they do it?
That's such a tough one, man. It would be smart. I think they should wait until definitely the last possible minute at the trade deadline. See what they're working with as far as the season. One thing about the Clippers, they're always good and they always believe that they can be a championship team. And I think that's going to hold them back from trading Blake. But it makes so much sense to just trade him. His trade value is probably still pretty high. He's still one of the better power forwards in the league. It just makes sense to do it. Will it happen? I doubt it. But the way they played last season without him, I just figured that it couldn't do anything but help them at this point.
And the way the NBA is going with the stretch fours, him and DeAndre, like, both of them are very dominant because of Chris Paul. You know, Blake Griffin obviously is able to have a mid-range jump shot now, which he didn't have a few years ago. So that's always good. But I feel like pairing up a stretch four with DeAndre Jordan, that could be really useful, and this team could go even further than what they're projected now. Although they're a top 5 team, I don't see this team doing anything special this upcoming season.
Yeah, and that's just because, again, they just haven't done anything in the past, and they rarely really make moves to improve their team. This year, I think they did a little bit to get better, and I think we'll talk about that in a second.
Good off-season acquisitions.
Yeah, but again, I agree with you in that point that I cannot see this team being in the championship or winning the championship.
Or even in the Western Conference Finals with Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and Chris Paul. I can't see that.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in Chris Paul. I'm a big fan of Chris Paul. And even with him being one of the best point guards in the league, it's so tough when you don't have that, at least a shooter in that power forward or center position. It's just kind of clogged up. And I know, as you mentioned, Blake has increased his range a little bit, but I just don't think that's enough.
And although Blake Griffin is the cover boy for the thumbnail and the intro, Chris Paul is the best player on this team. Let's not get that twisted. Far. It's just, I feel like there's more controversy around Blake Griffin and whether or not he should stick with this team. Especially, I believe he's an expiring contract, so one more season and he's gone, or he could be gone.
Yeah, it's a scary thing for the Clippers fans, because over this year and next year, they can potentially lose their two best players to free agency, and that's Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. So I'm sure they'll think about that. They'll probably have some nice conversation with those two guys to figure out if they plan on leaving, and if they are, get them out of there and get something in return for them. But it's a scary place for the Clippers fans. This will be, I think this is their last push with this big three.
It has to be.
They're a big three. It has to be. There's no way after this season, if they're not successful, that they could keep all three guys.
I feel like that's the best thing moving forward. Although Chris Paul is older than Blake Griffin, he's obviously the better player and obviously one of the best point guards in the league defensively and offensively, and just the passing ability. So you can't give up guys like Chris Paul, although he is kind of up there in age compared to Blake Griffin. I would much rather get rid of Blake Griffin than Chris Paul, because this team goes as far as Chris Paul goes. This team does not go as far as DeAndre Jordan goes or Blake Griffin. Chris Paul is the heart of this team.
By far, yeah.
So let's take a look at the offseason moves for this Los Angeles Clippers team to see how they improved. I personally am not a Clippers fan, but I enjoyed what they did in the offseason. I like Mo Spates, I like Brandon Bass, I like Raymond Felton. Those are amazing acquisitions for a team trying to contend. They lost Jeff Green, Pablo Prigioni, Cole Aldrich, and CJ Wilcox. Nothing too spectacular there. Drafted Bryce Johnson at number 25 and Diamond Stone at number 40. Good draft picks. We'll see how much they play.
Offseason, I think, overall was a success because with the little money that they had, they brought back Jamal Crawford, who just still doesn't look like he's aging at all. They brought back Austin Rivers, who's okay as a backup point guard.
Who might only be there because of his dad, but you know.
Because his dad, yeah. Yeah, he did kind of test the waters a little bit in free agency and just came back home to LA. But with the little money that they had after those two signings, they were able to get quality players for minimum contracts in Raymond Felton, Brandon Bass, and Mo Spates. Like, it just all looks good, especially for a team the Clippers have been. People have been saying that their bench has been so bad over the years. They finally have some guys that can come in, produce some quality minutes for them.
I like it a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how Bryce Johnson and Diamond Stone do, because Bryce Johnson, I liked him with UNC, and it's a playoff heavy team, the championship expectations, and I don't feel like Bryce Johnson or Diamond Stone, unless injury happens, aren't going to be getting that much minutes, but it should be interesting to see nonetheless. So with that said, let's take a look at the rotation for this Clippers team. The projected rotation looks like Chris Paul, JJ Redick, Wesley Johnson, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, while the bench looks like Austin Rivers, Jamal Crawford, Paul Pierce, Brandon Bass, and Mo Spates.
Look good, man. Big hole is, of course, that small forward position. They trusted in Wesley Johnson, re-signing him this year. But I think a upgrade would definitely be a necessity for them to be a legitimate contender in my eyes. JJ Redick had such a stellar season last year, one of the underrated players in the league. The bench, as I mentioned, does look improved from last year, but doesn't look too great to where I'm thinking, wow, they're going to be really, really good.
I think their point guard play is going to be very, very good this upcoming season. They have Chris Paul, Austin Rivers, who's, he's had to revitalize in his career due to his dad bringing him to Los Angeles, and then Raymond Felton, who did amazing with the Mavericks last season. So their 3 point guards that they have, pretty good point guards.
All quality point guards, and that's kind of rare. The third string point guard usually is just a guy, but now they have 3 point guards that can actually play ball.
That's probably their deepest position. So with that said, let's take a look at the projections for this Los Angeles Clippers team. Last season, they went 53-29. Over under, where do you see this Clippers team being this upcoming season?
53 wins last year. That's a big number. Even with Blake Griffin being out, 53 wins that's a bit surprising. I would probably say over. I would say over because Blake Griffin, as we said, it just hasn't really worked out with him and DeAndre Jordan. But he's still such a quality player in the league, and just adding him to the lineup again is gonna improve it, and benches improve. So I'm gonna go over.
Yeah, same as well. I feel like obviously the Thunder fell off because of Kevin Durant. It's gonna be interesting what the Thunder do, but now it leaves with only 3 elite teams in the Western Conference instead of 4. The Clippers will finally be that 3rd elite team in the Western Conference, and I feel like this team could win 55 to 56 games this upcoming season. So over as well from 53. I respect with what they're doing, and I respect with what Chris Paul is doing for this organization, leading the charge. So with that said, these are our projections for this Los Angeles Clippers team. A top 5 team, that's pretty good in my book. I'm pretty sure it's pretty good in your book as well. A top 5 team, you can't disagree with that. But if you somehow manage to disagree, let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like on this video and share it on any social media. It really helps our channels grow along with this series, which we put a lot of time and effort into, so it'd be greatly appreciated. Along with all of our social media links will be in the description as well if you want to check that out. Any last words for this top 5 team?
Not so much for the top 5 team, but for the audience watching. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. It's going to be another good one, guys.
We're almost done with the preview. It's so sad, but we're finally in the upper class, the top 5 teams. We'll see you then.